During this video, I'm going to be recording some horror stories for you to get you in the mood for Halloween. It is perfect outside right now. I am facing a window, a very big window, and it is raining and it is windy. The wind is blowing the rain to the side and making the trees dance. It's very cozy. This is my favorite weather. It's cloudy and dark, and I'm in a spooky mood. Spooky, 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 spooky. So I hope that you enjoy. If you are interested in receiving more ASMR videos every month, consider joining my Patreon, where I will be posting exclusive ASMR videos, as well as behind the scenes photos and videos and Snapchat. Check it out. The link will be below. This is such a nice sound. So, before I start, and I won't take up too much of your time, as we know how much people hate introductions on here, but that was not supposed to vibrate. Mute sound, vibrate. Okay, well, it vibrated anyway. I have been having some issues with this microphone, as you know. If you look, you see how the left side goes up a lot, but the right side doesn't go up very much. I don't know what's doing that. Maybe some of you people who are good with electronics, microphones will know. But it's been doing that for a year now, and I have to edit it manually, but it's never quite as good. It takes up a long time. A lot of time to edit it, and I can never get it perfect when I edit it. So, if anyone knows how to fix that, that'd be great, because I still want to use this microphone for up-close whispering. But I bought some Rode condenser microphones. I think they're called pencil microphones, the shape. And there's two of them. And I think that those microphones will be really good for role plays when I have to go side to side, ear to ear. It'll be a good binaural sound, and I'll have to plug those into the bottom of here. This will act as like a home base for the information that the microphones will gather. So I'm very excited. Those should be coming in a couple of weeks. I ordered them off of Amazon. So I look forward to that. I hope that you guys like the sounds that it makes. It's supposed to be warm sounding, so we'll see how it goes. I'm done. Okay. So the first story I have for you today, and I will be reading a few, is called Never Play with a Ouija Board. Are you ready? Okay. This story happened in October of 2004, back when I was still a third-year high school student. My friends and I stuck around the school late at night after our annual Halloween party. We had agreed to try out my friend's Ouija board. It wasn't the brightest idea, but we needed a thrill. We found a nice spot under a huge, narrow tree and proceeded with our half-assed ritual. There were 5 of us, 2 boys, 3 girls. We were all expecting some kind of paranormal contact. Paranormal contact. Rumors had it our school was haunted, but we've never really experienced anything firsthand, and it was Halloween when all the spirits came out to play. We wanted all to get spooked. Also, we've never seen a Ouija board firsthand before, so we were pretty excited. Our school was an old Spanish colonial house built in the 1800s when the Spaniards still occupied the Philippines. We were in a section of the school that doesn't get used very often. Located beside a creepy old Jesuit house, people only go there when they needed to use the restroom, store equipment on one of the sheds, or make out with their boyfriends or girlfriends. We sat down in the middle of an open space with only an exposed bare bulb nearby illuminating the surroundings. We were all having a laugh, scaring each other with what-if scenarios. It was your typical dumb kids doing dumb things. God, this is itching me. My friend who brought the Ouija board proceeded to place it in the middle of our circle. If I remember correctly, it was the glow-in-the-dark version, which we found hilarious, but it gave us the ability to see what was written in the dark. Not knowing what to do and going after what we'd seen in movies, we all proceeded to place our index finger on top of the planchette. We sat there looking at each other until one of us said, "What's next?" We didn't know if there was a proper way to start the ritual, plus the board didn't come with instructions, so we decided to just throw in a question. "Is anyone there?" I called out into the darkness. "If there are spirits living here, please talk to us." One of the girls joined in. We clearly had no idea what we were doing. Still, nothing. Not even the slightest bit of wind. One of my friends jerked the planchette, and the girl who brought the Ouija board screamed, breaking the silence. We all laughed at how ridiculous it was. After a bit of joking around, we decided to give it another go. We placed all our index fingers on the planchette once more and asked, "If there's anyone there, we would like to make contact." "Don't break the circle," one of my friends jokingly said. "Shut up," I whispered. We were just about ready to give up when the wind started to pick up. The stillness broke, and the darkness around us seemed to move. Just a coincidence, we thought. "Okay, don't break the circle," I yelled out. "Is anyone there?" I was excited. It was like a scene from a movie with dirt and dead leaves swirling around us. "Guys, I'm scared," my friend sitting beside me said. "My mom warned me about playing with forces we don't know." "Did you die here? Were you killed during the war? Are you a headless priest that roams these halls? Do you know Jose Rizal, our national hero? Are you a hottie?" My friend giggled. At this point, we were all throwing random stupid questions. Nothing. "This is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore," my friend said, exasperated. We were all thinking the same. Just then, a group of dogs from a neighboring house started barking at us through the chain-link fence. These 6 dogs were growling and showing teeth. We all screamed, and without finishing the ritual, bolted right out of there. "You're supposed to say goodbye." We didn't see each other until after Halloween break, and this is where the story gets creepy. One of the girls told us about a weird experience she had the night after playing with the Ouija board. She had gotten home late after hanging out with her friends from the neighborhood when she realized she forgot the keys to her house. So she called her brother up, who was then still sharing a room with her, and what he said creeped the hell out of her. He swore she was already home. He claimed to have seen her walk in a while ago, and that she looked really tired and saw her head straight to bed. Creepy, but no need to freak ourselves out, was what we all thought. Besides, her brother must have just been tired and seeing things. But then my other friend started telling us about an encounter she had that Halloween night. She was going up to her room when the lights started flickering as she was ascending the staircase. Your typical horror movie visuals shrug it off to faulty wiring. But just then she saw the door to her room open and a dark figure stepped out and stood atop their staircase. She couldn't make out the entity's face, but she recounted that she couldn't move and felt utter dread as the figure stared down at her. "No way," my best friend who just joined the conversation said in disbelief. Something happened to me as well. He recalled that he was sleeping one night when he woke up feeling really uncomfortable. He described his vision as having TV-like static, and a feeling of heaviness surrounded him. He looked around the room, and that's when he saw a bloody, charred face with piercing red eyes grinning at him through the window. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because I had an almost run-in with death that night. After the ritual, I was sleeping in our sedan on the way home after fooling around with the Ouija board when I felt our car jerk. I woke up instantly. Looking out of the window, I found out that we've been hit by a huge oil tanker. I panicked and leapt out of the car. Luckily, my mom and I survived the crash, since the front of the car was a total wreck. I still don't have an explanation why those things happened to us, but thank God nothing happened after that. I never played or gotten near a Ouija board ever since. Spooky. Have you ever played with a Ouija board? I have never ever done that, nor do I want to. I don't know, I just don't like to play into stuff like that. My sister did it, but she made her own with her friends. This next one is called Grandma's Light is Always On. In one corner of my grandma's living room stood a lamp that was almost never turned off. She would change the bulb every week like clockwork, waiting until the afternoon sunlight poured through the windows and filled the room. Even then she hurried, holding her breath until the deed was done and the lamp was back on. I would ask her about it once in a while. Each time she would smile softly, tussle my hair, and promptly change the subject. I didn't learn the truth until I was 13, the first time I turned off the lamp. I wanted to see what would happen. Grandma screamed when she walked into the darkened living room, a plate of cookies falling from her hands and crashing to the floor. 'Cause that's what grandmas do, they make cookies. I could hear her praying under her breath as she raced to turn the light back on. Tears were shining in her eyes. When she turned to me, her lips pressed thin. Without warning, she slapped me across the face. Grandma had never so much as raised her voice before, and I was too shocked to cry. She cried enough for both of us, gathering me up in her arms and begging for my forgiveness. With her face buried in my shoulder, she finally told me about the lamp. It was a ghost light, she said. Ever since she and my grandpa had bought the house, back when they first arrived in America, the spirits of the dead had plagued her. Only when her burden threatened to drive her mad did she ask Grandpa for help. She had expected him to laugh her out of the house, but he had surprised her by nodding gravely. It was he who first had lit the ghost light, and as long as the beacon burned through the darkness, she had never seen another spirit. I stopped visiting Grandma after that. It started gradually at first missing a day here and there, but by the time I received news of her death, I hadn't seen her in over 10 years. As her only living relative, I shouldn't have been surprised when I inherited her house. Yet, as I sat in her lawyer's office listening to him read her will, I was speechless. I had a difficult time paying attention after that, absorbed as I was with the business of remembering. So much love had filled those walls, so many happy memories. As I thought of my tiny, sterile apartment in the city, I quickly made a decision. I was almost overjoyed by emotion as I walked through the front door. Everything looked exactly as I had remembered it from my childhood. Houseplants still cluttered the windowsills, decorative bird plates still hung on the walls, and the ghost light still burned in the living room. Seeing the old lamp sent a chill down my spine. I froze in my tracks, the smile fading from my lips, and I couldn't help but think of the night Grandma had slapped me so many years ago. I had told my mother about the ghost light the next day, and she had dismissed it as a simple old-world superstition. It was the same way when she was growing up, she told me, and I shouldn't worry about it. Still, I couldn't shake the conviction that I had finally seen the true depths of my grandma's lunacy. I ran my fingers through the fringe The scratching continued intermittently, constantly jerking me from the edge of sleep, and finally I had enough. I threw the blankets off me and stormed out into the hall. Moonlight flooded the front of the house, and I didn't bother turning on lights as I made my way to the living room. You crazy. I knew every inch of the house, even after so many years, and I moved confidently through the dim light. I was furious at having been woken up from a dead sleep, and my anger ill-prepared me for what I found. An elderly woman was crouched in the corner, her gaunt back to me. She was scratching at the floor where the walls met, stopping every few minutes to cock her head. A gnarl of dread unfurled in the pit of my stomach. I had no idea how this woman had gotten into my house, and though it was obvious she needed help, it took me some time to summon the courage to approach her. My hand shook as I reached out to gently squeeze her shoulder. I meant to ask where she lived, who her caretaker was, but the words were driven from my mind when she turned and I saw her face. Her eyes were solid black, bottomless pits that didn't reflect the moonlight. Her jaw hung impossibly open, unhinged, and the dark tunnel of her mouth spiraled down into her throat. I had a moment to realize who she was, to recognize the familiar map of wrinkles in her face, the curls of her wispy hair. Then my grandma screamed. I shrieked, stumbling backwards away from the nightmare in the corner. My arms flailed in the air, reaching for the nearest lamp, and my hands touched the ghost light. I yanked the chain, filling the room with light, and she was gone. I never turned off the ghost light after that. After letting the bulb burn out one evening, I began changing it every week, just as Grandma had. Eventually I got married, and luckily for me, my wife was tolerant of my strange fixation on the lamp. The light continued to burn, and I lived my life happily enough. But my grandson has been asking about the ghost light lately. Each time he asks, I smile softly, tussle his hair, and promptly change the subject. For some reason, I can't bring myself to tell him the truth. I think about how I pulled away from my grandma, how I thought her crazy, and I keep my mouth shut. I worry, though. I know I won't be around forever, just as I know he will eventually turn off the ghost light. I worry that he might see me then, twisted and wrong, scratching in the corner. Someone commented and they wrote, change out the bulb with an LED. It will save you quite a bit on your electricity bill. Not a bad idea. You gotta think green. Ooh, this thing tickles. It's like tickling my nose and my lips and my chin anywhere it touches. This is called The Man in the Mirror. I used to visit my friend at her house out in a rural farming area before she moved. I'd sleep over a lot and we'd just hang out and draw. I usually slept in the living room on the couch. My lord, get off my mouth. Annoying. Okay. I'd usually sleep in the living room on the couch, and there were 2 mirrors in the room fairly close to the TV. When the TV was off as I was walking by, I started seeing shadows move behind me. I thought it was just a warped TV screen or something. Then, one evening, I walked into the living room to get my sketchbook so I could sketch in her bedroom. I bent over and picked it up, stood up straight, looked in the mirror, and there was a man behind me. A man standing in the hallway leading to the living room. He was average height, bald, and a bit old. I turned to look at him, and no one was there. I turned to look at the mirror again, and he was gone. I felt a little spooked. Another time, we were just sitting in the living room, and we heard what sounded like little kid footsteps running across the upstairs quickly. She had 2 adult siblings, but they were out at work, leaving us alone. Around that time, I decided to sleep in my friend's room instead of the living room, only to wake up in the middle of the night to see 4 of her posters slowly get peeled off the wall. It wasn't them falling and dragging each other down. They looked as if someone were carefully unsticking the tape and taking them down. The next morning, my friend put them back up, saying, "I need to get better tape for these." She and her family eventually moved out because they couldn't afford to live there anymore. We had never really talked about what happened in the house, as if talking about it would make it worse. But after she moved, her family said, "Dude, your house was haunted. I hope you realize that." She replied with, "Yeah, I knew it was. Some guy and his granddaughter lived there, but he killed her and then himself, so it was probably them or something. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to scare you away from hanging out with me." Then she dug out a copy of a news article she got from a local paper about the murder. The picture that went with the article was a picture of the man I saw standing behind me. Unfortunately, I have no clue where to find that article now, or if my friend still has her copy. If I dug enough, I could probably find it, but I don't have the time and I don't live near the area anymore. I don't even remember her town name or address because I moved out so close to 10 years ago. God, these are terrible. I'm on one of those sites where they post like the 5 scariest stories on Reddit. Like, you can do better than that. What is this? Okay, let's see if these are any good. This one says, "For anyone with loud upstairs neighbors. My sister and I were staying at an old historic hotel in the middle of nowhere, Montana. The building had been in use since the 1800s. My sister loves this place and has frequented it many times." God, these are all so horrible. I don't know if I'm just really picky, but I don't know. I've always been kind of a horror movie fanatic. I've seen a lot of horror movies since I was about 10, so maybe I'm a little desensitized. I think it's mainly the writing, like Reddit writers, right? I think the thing that makes H.P. Lovecraft so great is his writing is amazing, right? He really likes to set a scene. He doesn't even need to be talking about something necessarily scary to make it spooky. So, I don't know. I was so excited to film all these horror stories, and then I was reading. I was all pumped, and I got all cozy, and I sat down. And I started reading them. Like, what? That's not good. I wasn't going to read any H.P. Lovecraft. I was just going to read those other stories, but I think I'm going to read some H.P. Lovecraft because that was so bad. Let's find something, shall we? I don't want to read anything too long because some of his stories are quite long. Beast in the Cave. Why not? That's 5 tiny print pages long. Let's do it. That doesn't seem too long. The only problem with Lovecraft is there's some words that I feel like I'm not going to know how to pronounce, but that's fine. Okay. So hopefully all you Lovecraft fans out there enjoy this. Just make sure my battery's not about to die. It's totally about to die. Okay, so I am starting a new one, just in case it dies on me. Because if it dies on me while I'm recording, the footage goes away. That would suck, because I've already been recording for 33 minutes. Okay, you're coming over here. It's easier for me to read. This book is heavy. Okay. What's up? The Beast in the Cave. The horrible conclusion, which had been gradually obtruding itself upon my confused and reluctant mind, was now an awful certainty. I was lost, completely, hopelessly lost, in the vast and labyrinthine recesses of the Mammoth Cave. Turn as I might, in no direction could my straining vision seize on any object capable of serving as a guidepost to set me on the outward path. That nevermore should I behold the blessed light of day, or scan the pleasant hills and dales of the beautiful world outside. My reason could no longer entertain the slightest unbelief. Hope had departed, yet indoctrinated as I was by a life philosophy study, I derived no small measure of satisfaction from my unimpassioned demeanor, for although I had frequently read of the wild frenzies into which were thrown the victims of similar situations, I experienced none of these, but stood quiet as soon as I clearly realized the loss of my bearings. Nor did the thought that I had possibly wandered beyond the utmost limits of an ordinary search cause me to abandon my composure even for a moment. If I must die, I reflected, then was this terrible yet majestic cavern as welcome a sepulchre as that which any churchyard might afford, a conception which carried with it more of a tranquillity than of despair. Starving would prove my ultimate fate. Of this I was certain. Some, I knew, had gone mad under circumstances such as these, but I felt that this end would not be mine. My disaster was the result of no fault save my own, since, unbeknown to the guide, I had separated myself from the regular party of sightseers, and wandering for over an hour in forbidden adventures of the avenues of the cave, had found myself unable to retrace the devious windings which I had pursued since forsaking my companions. Already my torch had begun to expire. Soon I would be enveloped by total and almost palpable darkness of the bowels of the earth. As I stood in the waning, unsteady light, I idly wondered over the exact circumstances of my coming end. I remembered the accounts which I had heard of the colony of consumptives who, taking their residence in this gigantic grotto to find health from the apparently salubrious air of the underground world, with its steady, uniform temperature, pure air, and peaceful quiet, had found instead death in strange and ghastly form. I had seen the sad remains of their ill-made cottages as I passed them with the party, and had wondered what unnatural influence a long sojourn in this immense and silent cavern would exert upon one as healthy and as vigorous as I. Now I grimly told myself my opportunity for settling this point had arrived, provided that want of food should not bring to me too speedy a departure from this life. As the last fitful rays of my torch faded into obscurity, I resolved to leave no stone unturned, no possible means of escape neglected, so summoning all the powers possessed by my lungs, I set up a series of loud shoutings in the vain hope of attracting the attention of the guide by my clamor. Yet as I called, I believed in my heart that my cries were to no purpose, and that my voice, magnified and reflected by the numberless ramparts of the black maze about me, fell upon no ear save my own. Was my deliverance about to be accomplished so soon? Had, then, all my horrible apprehensions been for naught? And was the guide, having marked my unwarranted absence from the party, following my course and seeking me out in this limestone labyrinth? Whilst these joyful queries arose in my brain, I was on the point of renewing my cries in order that my discovery might come sooner, when in an instant my delight was turned to horror as I listened, for my ever-acute ear, now sharpened in an even greater degree by the complete silence of the cave, bore to my benumbed understanding the unexpected and dreadful knowledge that these footfalls were not like those of any mortal man. In the unearthly stillness of this subterranean region, the tread of the booted guide would have sounded like a series of sharp, incisive blows. These impacts were soft and stealthy, as of the padded paws of some feline. Besides, at times, when I listened carefully, I seemed to trace the falls of 4 instead of 2 feet. I was now convinced that I had, by my cries, aroused and attracted some wild beast, perhaps a mountain lion which had accidentally strayed within the cave. Perhaps, I considered, the Almighty had chosen for me a swifter and more merciful death than that of hunger. Yet in the instant of self-preservation, never wholly dormant, was stirred in my breast, and though escape from the oncoming peril might but spare me for a sterner, more lingering end, I determined nevertheless to part with my life at as high a price as I could command. Strange as it may seem, my mind conceived of no intent on the part of the visitor save that of hostility. Accordingly, I became very quiet, in the hope that the unknown beast would, in the absence of a guiding sound, lose its direction as had I, and thus pass me by. But this hope was not destined for realization, for the strange footfalls steadily advanced, the animal evidently having obtained my scent, which in an atmosphere so absolutely free from all distracting influence as that of the cave would doubtless be followed at a great distance. Seeing, therefore, that I must be armed for defense against an uncanny and unseen attacker in the dark, Luna's tail is wagging. She's asleep. Here, I'm going to show you something. She's dreaming. Her little feet. I think she might be awake now. I think her eyes open a little bit. No, still twitching. So cute. Luna. Luna. Oh, honey. Luna. Oh, baby. Oh. Oh. Where are you? There. Phoebe. What's this? Come here. Come here. Say hello. 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 Oh. What? What is it? What do you want? Hi. Oh. Now you're getting up. Oh, it's a party. Hello, kitties. Hello, kitties. Hello. Hi. I gotta film. Oh, leave me alone. Let me film. Okay, let's get back to business, eh? Let's put you back in here. Ooh, oh. Okay. Get back in there. Okay. Oh. Where were we? I gripped about me the largest of the fragments of rock which were strewn about all parts of the floor of the cavern in the vicinity, and grasping one in each hand for immediate use, awaited with resignation the inevitable result. Meanwhile, the hideous pattering of the paws drew near. Certainly, the conduct of the creature was exceedingly strange. Most of the time, the tread seemed to be that of a quadruped, walking with a singular lack of unison betwixt hind and forefeet. Yet at brief and infrequent intervals I fancied that but 2 feet were engaged in the process of locomotion. I wondered what species of animal was to confront me. It must, I thought, be some unfortunate beast who had paid for its curiosity to investigate one of the entrances of the fearful grotto with a lifelong confinement in its interminable recesses. It doubtless obtained as food. Hey, You want to come up here? My cutie. Are you a happy kitty? What a big happy kitty. Hey, hey you. What do you think you're doing? Hi baby. Hi cute. You want to be included. Hey? Yeah, is it snuggle time? Is it snuggle time? Hey, don't drop the book. You're gonna make the book fall. Hey you, come here. Come here. Lay down. Lay down. You can lay down on my lap. Come here. What are you doing? Hey, that's not your book. Get out of here. Get out of here. Bye. Hey you, come here. Come here. Hi Phoebe. Lay down. Lay down. Okay. Well, let's continue. Okay. It doubtless obtained as food the eyeless fish, bats, and rats of the cave, as well as some of the ordinary fish that are wafted in at every fishet of the green river, which communicates in some occult manner with the waters of the cave. I occupied my terrible vigil with grotesque conjectures of what alterations cave life might have wrought in the physical structure of the beast, remembering what awful appearances ascribed by local tradition to the consumptives who had died long after residence in the cavern. Then I remembered with a start that even should I succeed in killing my antagonist, I should never behold its form, as my torch had long since been extinct, and I was entirely unprovided with matches. The tension on my brain now became frightful. My disordered fancy conjured up hideous and fearsome shapes from the sinister darkness that surrounded me, and that actually seemed to press upon my body. Nearer, the dreadful footsteps approached. It seemed that I must give vent to a piercing scream, yet had I been sufficiently irresolute to attempt such a thing, my voice would scarce have responded. I was petrified, rooted to the spot. I doubted if my right arm would allow me to hurl its missile at the oncoming thing when the crucial moment should arrive. Now the steady pat-pat of the steps were close at hand, now very close. I should hear the labored breathing of the animal, and terror-struck as I was, I realized it must have come from a considerable distance, and was correspondingly fatigued. Suddenly the spell broke. My right hand, guided by my ever-trustworthy sense of hearing, threw with that full force the sharp-angled bit of limestone which it contained, toward the point in the darkness from which emanated the breathing and pattering, and wonderful to relate, it nearly reached its goal, for I heard the thing jump, landing at a distance away, where it seemed to pause. Having readjusted my aim, I discharged my second missile, this time most effectively, for, with a flood of joy, I listened as the creature fell in what sounded like a complete collapse, and evidently remained prone and unmoving. Almost overpowered by the great relief which rushed over me, I reeled back against the wall. The breathing continued, in heavy, gasping inhalations and expirations, whence I realized I had no more than wounded the creature, and now all desire to examine the thing ceased. At last something allied to groundless, superstitious fear had entered my brain, and I did not approach the body, nor did I continue to cast stones at it in order to complete the extinction of its life. Instead, I ran at full speed in what was, as nearly as I could estimate in my frenzied condition, the direction from which I had come. Suddenly I heard a sound, or rather a regular succession of sounds. In another instant they had resolved themselves into a series of sharp, metallic clicks. This time there was no doubt. It was the guide. And then I shouted, yelled, screamed, and even shrieked with joy as I beheld in the vaulted arches above the faint and glimmering effulgence, which I knew to be the reflected light of an approaching torch. I ran to meet the flare, and before I could completely understand what had occurred, was lying on the ground at the feet of the guide, embracing his boots and gibbering despite my boasted reserve, in a most meaningless and idiotic manner, pouring out my terrible story, and at the same time overwhelming my auditor with protestations of gratitude. At length I awoke to something like my normal consciousness. The guide had noted my absence upon the arrival of the party at the entrance of the cave, and had, from his own intuitive sense of direction, proceeded to make a thorough canvass of the by-passages just ahead of where he had last spoken to me, locating my whereabouts after a quest of about 4 hours. By the time he had related this to me, I, emboldened by his torch and his company, began to reflect upon the strange beast which I had wounded but a short distance back in the darkness, and suggested that we ascertain, by the rushlight's aid, what manner of creature was my victim. Accordingly, I retraced my steps, this time with a courage born of companionship, to the scene of my terrible experience. Soon we descried a white object upon the floor, an object whiter than the gleaming of limestone itself. Cautiously advancing, we gave vent to a simultaneous ejaculation of wonderment. For all the unnatural monsters either of us had in our lifetimes beheld, this was in surpassing degree the strangest. It appeared to be an anthropoid ape of large proportions, escaped perhaps from some itinerant menagerie. Its hair was snow white, a thing due, no doubt, to the bleaching action of long existence within the inky confines of the cave, but it was also surprisingly thin, being indeed largely absent, save on the head, where it was of such length and abundance that it fell over the shoulders in considerable profusion. The face was turned away from us, as the creature lay almost directly upon it. The inclination of the limbs was very singular, explaining, however, the alternation in their use, which I had noted before, whereby the beast used sometimes all 4, and on other occasions but 2 for its progress. From the tips of the fingers or toes, long nail-like claws extended. The hands or feet were not prehensile, a fact I had ascribed to that long residence in the cave which, as I mentioned before, seemed evident from all-pervading and almost unearthly whiteness so characteristic of the whole anatomy. No tail seemed to be present. The respiration had now grown very feeble, and the guide had drawn his pistol with an evident intention on dispatching the creature, when a sudden sound emitted by the latter caused the weapon to fall unused. The sound was of a nature difficult to describe. It was not like the normal note of any known species of simian, and I wondered if its unnatural quality were not the result of a long-continued and complete silence, broken by the sensations produced by an advent of the light, a thing which the beast could not have seen since its first entrance into the cave. The sound, which I might feebly attempt to classify as a kind of deep-toned chattering, was faintly continued. All at once, a fleeting spasm of energy seemed to pass through the frame of the beast. The paws went through a convulsive motion, and the limbs contracted. With a jerk, the white body rolled over so that its face was turned in our direction. For a moment, I was so struck with horror that the eyes thus revealed that I noted nothing else. They were black, those eyes, deep jetty black, in hideous contrast to the snow-white hair and flesh, like those of other cave denizens. They were deeply sunken in their orbits, and were entirely destitute of iris. As I looked more closely, I saw that they were set in a face less prognathous than that of the average ape, and infinitely more hairy. The nose was quite distinct. We gazed upon the uncanny sight presented to our vision. The thick lips opened, and revealed sounds issued from them, after which the thing relaxed in death. The guide clutched my coat sleeve and trembled so violently that the light shook fitfully, casting weird, unmoving shadows on the walls about us. I made no motion, but stood rigidly still, my horrified eyes fixed upon the floor ahead. Then fear left, and wonder, awe, compassion, and reverence succeeded in its place, for the sounds uttered by the stricken feature that lay stretched out on the limestone had told us the awesome truth. The creature I had killed, the strange beast of an unfathomed cave was, or had been at one time, a man. Now, thank goodness we were towards the end, because my annoying downstairs neighbor has put on country music. I think. It's either country or pop. She has been a pain in my ass. You know what she does? She puts on loud music, like way louder than this. Okay, she's downstairs, like way louder than this. Like it'll make my apartment vibrate. And she will leave for like 6 hours, but she'll just leave it up. So the other day I had a horrible headache. I think I was getting a head cold. I had a headache and my ear was aching, similar to that of an ear infection, but I didn't have an ear infection. And she had this, it was almost like spa music, but it was playing so loud that, again, like I said, it was a vibrating. And I was just like, oh God, and I couldn't make an ASMR video, and I wanted to. And my partner came home, and I was complaining about the music, and he's like, oh, well, she's not home. And we looked, and like, her car's not there. So, yeah, we've had a lot of fights. She doesn't like, my floors are really squeaky. So any gentle walking will make the floor will squeak. And she complains about that. So if I am up at 12 in the morning, which not everyone has to go to bed at the same time, and I just want to like walk and get a glass of water, she'll get angry and she'll contact my landlord. She complains about my cats walking around. Like, who does that? And usually what she does is she takes a stick or a broom or something and she bangs the ceiling really loud. One time, I don't know what it was, but I was sleeping, and all of a sudden I was awoken by these bangs at 5 in the morning. I was fast asleep. And it woke me up, and I was like, that couldn't be her. Like, there's no noises. I was asleep, and my cats were asleep, too. And I waited. I was like, oh, that couldn't be her. And I was kind of sitting and relaxing it, and like at 5 in the morning, because she woke me up. And like 20 minutes later, she banged again. No particular reason. And I was really sad, and I fell back asleep, and then I was woken up again at 7 in the morning. I cried that morning because it was just so stressful. We've been fighting for several years now. It's been like 3 years. And I hate fighting. I want to get along with my neighbors. I get along with my other neighbors. And so even though I haven't done anything wrong, I've told her like years ago that I don't like the banging. If anything is wrong, send me a text. I gave her my number, because the banging is just very stressful. But yeah, she complains about me walking, but yet she plays really loud music, and she plays it all night too. She likes to go to sleep with music on. And so this kind of thing, it'll be this loud and louder. But it'll be like whale music, like whale sounds, and like supposedly relaxing music. But when it's that loud and you don't want to listen to it, it's not very relaxing. So I'm gonna stop this video now. But God, she's a fucking horrible neighbor. She's old and bitter. I don't know what happened to her, but she's a very angry older woman, and she has made my life hell. But I can't move because things are too expensive. Like, if you want it to be that quiet, lady, why are you in? Like, I could have children. I'm allowed to have children in this apartment. Imagine if I had kids and they were running around. And kids do that. They're allowed to do that. Oh yeah. Sorry, I vent at you. Listen to me. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed all the reading, and I hope that you have a lovely night.